We've been digging a German settlement site, but at the very last minute, we found one single artifact from the lobe down below from the German layer. It was from Paleolithic layer. And this is it. I brought it. Here we go. This is the Paleolithic stone tool. Actually, it's not the complete tool. It's not made into certain kind of tools like knives or points or awl or scraper or whatever. This is the material. This is the second material. This is a flake, what we call, kind of thin flake. And this was flaked off from the nodule, the core, big stone. And this point was punched and flaked off. So this, you see a flat, simple fracture face of the flake. This is the back side of the flake. This is the front side. You see various faces, this one and this one and this one and this one. And they're all flaked faces from various directions. So obviously you can tell that this was on the stone nodule, original material, and various flakes were flaked off on the surface. And finally, this one was flaked off. Yeah? So this is a material to be made into other kind of tools, various tools like knives and points and scrapers. And this stone is called tuff, T-U-F-F. So originally volcanic ash. Gyokaigan. And the color is kind of greenish. This is called green tuff. And this is a specific type of stone found in the southern Tohoku area, somewhere between Tohoku and Kanto, rather up north area. So it's like hundreds of kilometers away from ICU. So probably those guys wandered around toward north and picked up some good material of stone too. This is a good material. It's very hard and very sharp. You see the edge, very sharp edge. Yeah. Okay. And we haven't found Paleolithic tools on campus for about 40 years. 40年もね、見つかってなかった。First one after 40 years. ということで、there must be tons of these still sleeping underground. Okay, I'll show you some more examples. I'm talking about Japanese Paleolithic, which is also called Upper Paleolithic. There are Lower Paleolithic and Upper Paleolithic. That means the layer, depth of the layer. The Lower Paleolithic is earlier stage, and Upper is a later stage, right? And it's only the later stage we see. It's a Homo sapiens stage. But the Lower Paleolithic is earlier, even earlier. When they did not make decent tools. It's one of the first tools the human beings ever made. Is called chopper. Chopper. And it's just a block of stone, but on the end, on one end, there's some fracture faces to make one blade right here. It's not a sharp blade. You can't cut anything, but it's like, axe-like thing, for rough kind of work. So this is one of the first stone tool that ever made, probably over 2 million years before. But actually, this particular chopper belongs to Jomon period, very late one. So that means they always wanted to make this kind of, wanted to use this kind of tool too. It's not the only early type of tools, but in the later time, of course, they use the same type of tools too, because the function is the same. It's a rough worker. And also, we don't have this in Japan, but this is called hand axe. You find it in Africa, Europe, in Middle East, in that area around. And this is one of the lower Paleolithic tools, very early ones. So one side, one end is pointed, one is rounded. And the entire areas worked, chipped to form certain forms, eye drop shape. So this is more advanced type of tool than this one. This is very primitive type of tool, but this is more advanced stage. And I mean, this is a replica. This is not the real one. It's a replica made by a European archaeologist. And the stone quality is called flint. We don't have this in Japan. The close one would be chert or shale, but flint is a particular type of stone. It's very glassy, very gives very sharp edge when you break it. It's very sharp. Yeah. Back to the Upper Paleolithic. Okay, so I'll talk about this next handout. Paleolithic period tools in society. Okay. We don't find too many things from the Paleolithic layers because all the organic stuffs, they are gone, disintegrated and disappeared too soon. And what we see normally in the Kanto loam layer is stones, only stones, or charcoal. Charcoal, when you burn fuel, when you burn wood, and if you can burn it perfectly, it will turn into ash and disappear, blown in the wind. But when you build fire, you always see charcoal left. It's not being burned perfectly. And those charred wood are very hard material. It's a cluster of charcoal, cluster of carbon. So it's very, very hard. Carbon is one of the hardest material in the universe. So diamond is made of carbon too, right? And it's very hard to disintegrate, hard to decay away. So in Paleolithic layers, we often find speckles of charcoal, sumi desu ne. And in many cases, they're in the cluster, they're concentrated cluster area of the charcoal we find, and that's the indication of fire being made. And so either stone or charcoal we find in the earlier stage, nothing else. Too bad. In Japan, of course, in other parts like Siberia, in the Eurasian continent, some part in Europe, they may have remaining material made of organic stuffs like bones or antlers or tusk, as I said. Not very many though. And we don't find that in Japan yet. Too bad. Anyway, let's talk about the variety of tools. Okay. share the, wait a minute. Real size. What is real size? Wait a minute. Okay. Right. Oh, I forgot to show you this one. These are various types of Venus found in the Siberian area. They seem to be all, almost all female figure, sometimes long legs. Depends on the shape and size of the material, I think. But interestingly enough, these are, all the dotted niches all over, and looks like a cloth, and especially on the head, you see something like a hood. So probably these marks are this sign of leather or something, the cloth made of leather that covers the entire body, because it's in a early, very cold period, ice age. So you should have hood, and this one's also the same type. Yeah? And this was more stylized. And let me see. Oh, this is more stylized. This is just a stick, but the same kind of patterns covering all over as this one. So probably the same thing. Okay, just a minute. Wait. Oh, this is yes, okay. Let me go for different one. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, one different one. Right. Okay. The flake that I showed you right now, it's from ICU location 43. So this layer that we found, this tool belongs to somewhere around 20,000 years ago. 2万年前ですね。Okay. Okay, there are various type of tools. Like I've shown you this chopper, chopper. It's a very early type. The first stone tool human beings ever made was probably chopper. It's very simple, very useful in rough work. And of course, you see all kinds of tools like points, 戦闘機と言いますね。projectile point. 槍ですね。It's a spear point. Or knife. We call it knives. And this type is particular to Japanese Paleolithic. But we figure out that these are mainly used for spear point. It's also pointed, and this edge has very, very sharp razor edge. Very sharp. And of course, you can use it as a knife, but this is too sharp to use as a knife because it will break if you cut something with it. But if you use it, if you haft it, put it on the end of the stick and use it as a spear, it works really well. And this is a trapeze. Daikeiseki って言うんですけどね。This also bears a very, very sharp edge right here. So probably it's also one of the spear type. You haft it right here. for a stick right there. And it's kind of a wide blade for a spear, but very sharp. So it gives a big damage to the game. And this is scraper. These are scrapers, two kinds of scrapers.
Sorry, Professor.
Yep.
I can't see your screen.
You can't see your screen?
I can't see your screen. Are you showing something?
Oh, sorry about that. Let me see. I must be making a mistake. All right, now here we go. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let me start off again. Okay, so this is one of the earliest type of very primitive type of tools, but were also used, have been used all through the Stone Age till the end, I would say, because it's particular type for rough work. Very heavy, big tool, and has a rough blade. You know, not very sharp. This is a cross section. This is not very sharp. All right, this is a spearhead points, and this is a knife, what we call knife-shaped tool, but this is also a spear point, we figure out, because in that certain time range of Paleolithic period in Japan, we don't have this one very much. This appears in the very last stage of the Paleolithic period. But most of the time, we only see this one as a sharp tool, pointed tool. So we're pretty sure these were also used for spear points instead of knives. These are the knives, scrapers, side scrapers, as a side blade. And this one's end blade. One end has a blade, which is not very sharp, very big angle blade, isn't it? So these were cutting tools, and these were scraping tools, probably. Like scraping the fat off from the hide, skin, animal skin. Isn't it? You can't cut the skin, but you want to scrape the fat off. And this is a trapeze with a very sharp edge on one end. So this was also used for spear point, hafted here. So it's not sharp, I mean pointed, but the sharp edge would give big damage to the game. Okay, and notched scraper right here is notch. Probably used for shaping a stick or some wooden stick or something. You have to prepare the haft for a spear and other tools. Then you would cut the some parts out from the stick to make it straight. So you need this kind of notched scrapers. And this is kind of difficult one. This is graver, what we call graver. It's in Japanese, choki or chokokuto. This one end is cut and it has a flat face right here, but also this end was also flaked out. So this pointed part has a very, very strong, durable blade right here. Oh, I should. I always forget to show you samples. Actually, these are fake. I made it, mostly. Go back. Point made of obsidian. It's not very sharp. I mean, pointed. It is pointed, but it's not very sharply pointed. It's kind of broken at the end. You see the fractures, flaked surface. It's very thin too. It's very, very difficult to make this one, to make it this thin, you know. And smaller type of points, small sharp. It's also made of obsidian. It's obsidian from Hokkaido. It's can you tell it's kind of transparent a little bit, and very thin too. And it's the same point, but of the same different stone quality. This is made of the andesite. It's like a basalt, andesite or basalt type. It's not obsidian. It's not glassy, but a very hard type of stone that gives a sharp edge, of course, very thin and sharp. And these type of points did not appear until the very last phase of the Paleolithic period in Japan. We don't see much of these, but instead what we see is this one, knife-shaped tool. And it's different from points, totally different. The technology is different. It's more thicker, a little bit thicker, and one end is worked. Both sides are worked perfectly, totally. It's beautifully made, but knife-shaped tools, only one side is worked, but this side is not worked. This side is the edge of the raw material. This is a very sharp edge. カミソリのようなね, razor edge. So this also functions as a spearing, piercing tool. So probably these are the spear points too, small ones too, just like that. Only one end, one side is worked. This side is not worked. This is a sharp edge, very sharp edge.
Excuse me,
See?
I have a question.
Sometimes.
I have a question.
Yes.
For these points, are they also used for arrows?
Arrow?
Or only for spears?
Bow and arrow, you mean?
What?
Bow and arrow system?
Yeah, yeah.
They never have bow. They no evidence that they have bow. Only spears.
Okay.
And I will talk about it later, but it's only from Jomon period that they started to use bow and arrow system. So.
Okay. So is it Neolithic?
What's that?
From Neolithic periods?
I can't hear you very well. Sorry.
Is it from the Neolithic periods?
Sort of. I have to explain about that too, because I'm talking about the Paleolithic in Japan, but in Japan, we don't have the exact definition of Neolithic. The Jomon period is close to Neolithic, but it's not. So I have to explain that later. But so in the Neolithic stage, in general, in the world, they would start using the bow and arrow system. This is arrowhead. This is Jomon arrow. And that never appeared in the earlier Paleolithic period. It's kind of complicated. This is another one, small obsidian arrowhead. I'll show you later. Okay, so only the spears were the only arms that they had for hunting. And these are also knife-shaped tools, but it has a sharp blade on one end. It's very sharp. It's not pointed, but very sharp. So it's also useful for hunting. There are various types of hunting tools. And scrapers, side scrapers. This edge is worked all the way. Can you see the worked edge? So it's not as sharp as the raw edge of this kind of tool. You know, this edge is very sharp. It's not worked. But if you flake or chip the end, then you will get this kind of blade. And the reason why they work it, and it makes it dull, it's not dull, but compared to this raw edge, we call them feather edge, but it's not as sharp. The reason why is to make it durable. you know, this is obsidian, this is glass, volcanic glass, and it's very easy to fracture, easy to break when you use it. And if you have a feather edge, you know, you can, when you cut the meat, you don't want to eat meat with a obsidian glassy chips inside, you know, left. So this is a durable, but cuts well also, durable blade. It's a side scraper, you see? And also another type of scraper is an end scraper. This end is rounded and it has a blade, but it's not sharp. It has a more angle. Yeah. So this is not a cutting tool, but a scraping tool like this. And it's really interesting to see this kind of tools. You can find it a lot in the northern part of Japan, more in the northern part of Japan, and probably colder area that they have to process a lot of animal skin. So you have to have a lot of these scrapers. Sometimes you see tiny, tiny tools. This is the same end scraper, It's also a scraping tool. It's very interesting, but sometimes they make very small tools too. Engravers that I just talked. It's engraver. This edge, it has a face on top, face on the side, and this corner is a very strong blade. It's like a chisel. So you work on the bones or something, you know, make niche or what. Like those carvings could have been made with this kind of tools. You know, scrape or, you know, make niches. Okay. And anything else? And wait. Oh. Okay, another type, awl, perforator, 切りですね。You have to make hole, like when you use animal skin and make something like your cloth or tent or whatever, you have to sew the pieces together, right? So you have to, naturally, you have to perforate, make hole with awl. So they make a lot of these too. And of course, not only animal skin, but you can perforate the bones and other material too. And this is PSSQ. We don't really know about these guys. くさび型石器と言いますかね. So it has a fracture from both ends. So the cross section looks like a wedge. So that's why we call in Japanese wedge type, wedge shape tool. But, we don't really know of the function of these. We often see these. Probably when you want to crack a bone, split it in two, you make a grave with this one and punch this into the groove, and not grave but groove. And yeah, that's possible, and that's the reason why it has the fracture on both sides, because it's been punched. Okay, and also there are a couple of stuff shown at the right end. Sekijin blade, ですね. Blade is very important because, oh, wait a minute. In the earlier stages, they never had this one, blade. And this is a revolutionary technology to acquire these blades from the original material. And this is the core. It's a leftover from taking those blades from the original stone. You see the parallel stone lines, and these are the signs that these parallel, very thin material was flaked off. I'll explain that about it later. Okay. And the transition or assembly of the tools. The vertical line shows the time. This is the earliest phase of the loam. This is layer 10 of the loam in Kanto area, up till layer 4 upper. And there, it's written in Japanese, but there are various types of tools: knives, trapeze, scraper, awl, points, and how do you say that in English? Spatula-like tool, scraper, kind of scraper, and partially polished axe. And this is a chopper. You know, all the time they were making chopper. And hammer stone. You need a hammer stone to work with a stone tool. Something like that. So they don't appear all the time. You know, this one appears all the time. And scrapers also useful tool in any time. But like knife-shaped tools, they didn't have too much, but the quantity expanded as the time passed. So you can see the diagram. You can make the diagram like this, and you can tell the assemblage of the various type of tools in various period. And of course, you can estimate the reason for it. Yeah? Okay, this is the type of stone tools that found from various layers. This is Nogawa site. It's used to be on campus, but it's out of campus now. It's next to campus now. From layer 8 up to layer 3. Layer 3 is the top of the loam. Layer 2 is a Jomon layer. So the Paleolithic starts from layer 3 down to layer 10. And from this site, you know, various layers included various type of tools. And do you realize the difference? Do you realize the difference of the type of tools, shape of the tools depends on the layers? This is earlier, lower is earlier, upper is later. You see the point right here? The point appeared only in the top layer, not the other one. And do you see any tendency or any characteristics of the tool shape, tool type by layer? Compare the earlier one and the later one. It's totally different, right? What's the difference? Anybody?
The upper ones are smaller
Mm.
and sharper, maybe?
Yeah. Right. Good points. Those lower ones are larger and they don't look sharp at all. Maybe sharp edge, but not the pointed tools. Isn't it? And upper ones are smaller and sharper. And also the shapes are kind of unified, the same shape, sort of pointed shape, isn't it? And that's the major difference between earlier stage and the later stage.
How many years is the difference between the lower part and the upper part?
The upper part is like 15,000 years before, right here, layer 3. And the lowest would be almost like 35,000 years. Okay. So 20,000 years difference. Long time, of course. So anyway, back to the story, but you know, and also these lower type, earlier type, you don't see very uniform shape. They are all different shape, irregular shape, I would say. But these are kind of uniform shapes. And these groups are what we call knife-shaped tool, in uniform shape, because they were made in a certain technology. They have a certain method to make this particular kind of tools. They had the rules. They didn't have rules in this area, I mean, time. Isn't it? Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I'll talk about the rule later.
Excuse me, Professor. Can I ask a question about the layer?
Yeah.
I want to know, does the, for example, the certain layer means the kind of the same age in the history, or it's depend on region. For example, the layer 3 in different part of Japan always like the stuffs from the German period, or it's depending on the human activity that could be the different age of time.
Okay. In general, they're the same, but geological features are pretty different. Depends on the location, because some area maybe the volcano is closer, or then you have more thicker layers of ash accumulation or things like that. But in general, if you have a Jomon layer, like layer 2, then right below there you have the 3, and that's the latest phase of the Paleolithic. That's the same, but you may see more layers or less layers, depends on the time period. And that's one of the things archaeologists have to figure out. The matching of each layer depends on the locality, you see. And then they will be able to compare the stone tools of the same time, in depends on the area, you see. So it's really difficult field, but they're still working on that. And probably they already know the matching of the layers depends on the area already. So they're still comparing the stone tools of the same age. Okay. And back to this one I have to show you. Did I tell you the difference between Paleolithic and Neolithic? The word term of the original term is the difference of the stone tool technology. And Paleolithic, Kyuseki, Paleolithic means you only have chipped stone tools. You make the stone tools by chipping only. But into Neolithic, the polishing technique is added to the chipping technology. So that was the original term. But only in Japan, we see this polished type of tools in the very, very early stage of Paleolithic period. This is, exceptional, really. No one else has it in the world, only in Japan. All over Japan, we see it. But not all through the Paleolithic period. I will go back to this one. This is a partially polished stone axe, isn't it? Partially polished axe. Only appears in early time and disappears all too soon, and never show again until Jomon time. Isn't it? So these guys are kind of mystery now. And we don't really know about the function, because the edge polished axes are real axes. They were supposed to be used for tree cutting and tree working, woodworking. This polished smooth blade is good for cutting wood. And well, we could say they were cutting wood at the time, but why do they disappear? Why did they disappear? Because they always wanted to cut wood and work with the wood. So it's kind of mystery. But these are the earliest polished stone tools in the world. And these are the knife-shaped tools. And most of the time in Japanese Paleolithic, the Upper Paleolithic, we see these type of tools very often. One side is worked, and lower part of the other side is worked, but this is the original edge of the original material. So it's really sharp, feather edge sharp. And this edge is sharp, this one is sharp, this right here is sharp, this one's sharp. The other side is always worked. So in English terms, sometimes they call it backed blade. Back, 背中ですね, backed blade. Anyway, so these various forms could be seen in knife-shaped tools, but they are all common in shape, that they're all pointed. So it's obvious that they were used for hunting and spearhead, as a spearhead, because we don't see any other spearhead material ever excavated. So this must be the spearhead. And I shall talk about this blade technique. I showed you the blade, this one. And the early technique is like making chopper. You pick up one piece of stone and probably chip off one end, one side, and make rough, coarse blade. But in the Upper Paleolithic period, they invented this blade technique. I don't know who invented it, but you could see it all over the world. And maybe the result of dispersal, or we don't really know. Many people probably invented it in various spots in the world. Now this is very simple. You break one block of material and make flat face right here. This is what we call platform. 打面と言いますけどね。Percussion platform. Then hit the edge of this platform to flake off, flake off the very thin flakes. And just keep going all around, and then start again, then you will get something like this. See? So this is the blade. The first stage, this one, you have a skin, external skin on the surface. You don't use it very much. You take off the skin all around once, and then you start taking this blades. These are the blades. And you can use...
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
How did the people cut the stone like that in half?
I'm just starting to talk about it. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this is how they made it. Direct percussion. This is antlers, yeah? Deer antler. It's a very hard material for good for hammer, used as a hammer, and hit the very edge, close to the edge of the percussion platform. Then you will get this very thin flake off. And sometimes you mishit. You can't really, you really have to hit the right point to get this beautiful blade. And if you're used to it, you can do it. But when you're not, you may hit something deeper inside or something like that. So in order to get the right percussion point, you may use something like this. This is a wedge-like thing, you know. So it's called indirect percussion technique. And from this material, secondary material, flakes or blade, you will make it into something like points or knives or whatever by pressure flaking. This is also antler, pointed end of the antler. And you flake off by pressing it hard to the edge of the material. And you can heat it or you can press it, either way. But you can control well with the pressure flaking compared to the percussion technique. So both in both ways you could make various type of tools. I should show you this, right? Okay, in the second part, I will show you. And also at the very end of the Paleolithic phase, not only the points, but there's something like microblades appear. Microblades, super technology. You make something like this. This looks like a spear, big fat spear, but it is. But it's not the tool. It's still the material. It's a core. And you flake off the top like this and make a percussion platform right here, very thin platform right here. Then you start striking the edge from this direction. Then you get this tiny, tiny blades. The same kind of blades, but it's only small, very tiny ones. What do they use it for? Oh, wait. Okay, these are microblades. Tiny blades, parallel shape, and very sharp. And these were used like this. So it was planted into a stem, either wood or bone or whatever. You make a niche groove. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, this is also the same thing. Groove and plant these into the stem, and you make longer blade. This is a real example from the Eurasian continent. It's not Japanese, but it's a bone spear, but it's covered with alignment of these microblades on both sides. You see the cross section, you have this tiny groove. These microblades were planted into the stem. 順番がわからない。wait, let me go back. Oh, I don't have that, right? Here. Okay, I'll show you examples. There you go. It's very small, and very sharp on both sides. So razor sharp, you can shave your mustache. It's a very, very sharp thing. And I don't have it right here. So, anyway, these were planted into a stem like this, you see, to make anything like knives. If you plant these on both sides, then you can make up a point, spear point, or whatever, scraper, knives, points, whatever. So it's a versatile tool. And but this is very difficult to make. This these obsidian tools I've been showing you is the fake. I made all these, except this one. This is a real one. This is a core, the remnant of flaking of microblades. So it's called microblade core. Can you see the fine vertical lines covered with the fine lines, vertical parallel lines? Can you see it? This is a real one.
Yeah.
Perfect parallel lines. ね、ちょっと明かりがよく見えない。この方がいいかな。ね、you see the line. Okay, I'll show you another example. Oh, yeah, it's just better. So made of red shale, so a northern Japan type of stone. You see the pearl line, perfect pearl line. This is very difficult to make. I mean, flake. This microblades. Another one. See this long line. 見えるかな? Ah, これで見えるね. You see? Impossible. I can't do this. This is very, very difficult. You have to have a certain skill to make this. So, and why would they make this kind of difficult things, you know, microplates? What's the reason? What's the good point about this planting type of tools instead of a solid type of tools? What's the difference?
More effective, but I'm trying to think if they were thinking of causing damage
Causing damage
to
How?
to something. I'm not sure if to other humans or to animals.
To animal, to the game, cause damage.
I mean, more sharper, more effective with.
Oh, I see. Okay, it's
Yeah.
sharper. All right. Yeah, that's good. Any other reasons?
Was it more solid?
Solid? No, it's more fragile. It's.
Oh,
You see,
oh, that one. Okay, yeah.
yeah, microblades. So why would they go into this one instead of this one? But this is a lot more difficult to make. Takes more time and energy, more skill. It's very difficult. What's the merit? What's the better
Because
point about this one?
because it's more precise. to
Precise.
do small things, just I don't know, maybe to sew their clothes or something like that. Was it
Very
more
precise. Precisely made.
No, it's more like to use for, how do you say, smaller jobs, like to use for precise stuff.
No, for smaller works. But they were not used for smaller works. They were used for the same kind of tools,
Oh,
same
okay.
points, you know, by using it in a raw, planted various pieces into the stem and make larger points or knives. See, so it's kind of difficult to tell, but you see this one, if you use, I mean, this requires a lot of time and energy to make one. And also this type of stone material is very precious. You can't get it easily. You have to go to the source, or you can, if you're lucky, you may be able to exchange with other group. But seldom chances you can get this kind of material. But you have to use it, consume it in this way. You have to make it from a big piece, right? And when you use it, in many cases, this is glass, volcanic glass, so it's very sharp, but it's very fragile too. When you use it to the game, it breaks. And when it breaks in half, then what would you do? Bring it home and probably reshape it to a smaller one. But maybe you can use it and break again, and they wouldn't be of use anymore, right? While this one, the planting type, okay, you use it, it breaks, but you can replace the other piece and you can fix it, right? So this is a fixable tool. You can fix it anytime, many times. You can just replace the pieces and plant the other again. You can break it to the certain size and plant it again. So it's a fixable tool, fixable stone tool that they never had before. And also, talking about the stone material, these are obsidians, very precious material. And if you use it and break it, that's the end. You have to waste it, you know. But this one, you have to you just have to change it pieces by pieces, so you don't have to consume very much. In other words, if you have one nodule like this, maybe 1 kilogram of original stone of obsidian, how many of these can you make? Maybe 4, 5, 6, less than 10. How many of these can you make from this one? Hundreds. And some people would explain it as a length of the blade, like this material, this most primitive stone tools. Maybe from 1 kilogram of the nodule, you would get 10, 20 centimeter of blade. Yeah? It's 8 inches, that's all. From the same material, they would, from the blade technique, they would acquire maybe many blades from one nodule. So maybe the total of the blade length of the blade, blades would be like 10 meters or more compared to 8 inches, 20 centimeters, 10 meters. It's a lot. And how about this one? 100 meters of blade you can get from the same material. This is the most effective way of using the same material, precious material. So this was a great invention. Even though the skill you need require high skill, but still it's a very, very efficient way of using the material. And you can fix the tool too. It's very, very efficient. This is a highlight of the stone tool technology. Yeah. Okay. Wait a minute. めんどくさいね。画面共有。Okay. So another chart of blade technique and tool variation. Original stone into certain worked shape, and you get a platform right here and start taking the blades like this. See? So this is a blade. Always bear a parallel lines on the surface. You see? And from this blade, you can make it into knives. This is upside down direction. But, you see, this is original chop edge of the blade. And this is an end scraper, side scraper. This is a graver, owl, and notched scrapers, from the same material. So you can get the toolkit out of this blade technique. So experiments of the indirect percussions, the deer antler hammer, and this is a punch. We call them punch. You place the end of the punch at the edge of the material and strike on the other end, and you get this blade beautifully. Well, it's not very easy, of course. These blade techniques are not easy either. Uniface tool, this is out of blade. This is a back of the blade, just came from the original core. It's just one face. And the other end used to have this parallel lines of the previous flaking, but it's been worked very minutely, beautifully shaped into certain type of knives. Okay. So let's have a break. It's 4:24. So let's have 10 minutes break. We'll start from 4:39 or around. Okay. I'll show you how to do this. not the microblade one, but the flaking technique. I'll show you later. Okay. Right.
Okay.
先生、すみません。
はい。
今見せていただいたこのスライドの資料を授業後にまた見れたらいいなと思うのですが、Moodle に上げていただくことってできますか？
それはしません。すいません。
しないですか？
授業中にちゃんと見といてください。うん、それしちゃうともう授業やる意味なくなっちゃいますから、授業でしっかり見といてください。
はい。
はい。で、どうしても必要だっていう場合は、ソースを教えることもできますから、
はい。
それを言ってください。メ
わか
ール
りました。
かなんかで言ってくれれば、この写真どうしてもいるっていうのがあれば。
わかりました。ありがとうございます。
はい。そうですか。Okay. I want to show you. Well, you can't really get the idea of making stone tools, by chipping or, well, polishing. You can get an image of polishing tools with a whetstone or whatever, but chipping technique, I will show you. Is everybody back? Okay. Here's a leather, very thick, hard leather of a cow or something. Here's a piece of obsidian. This one's from Hokkaido. Very good quality, pitch black obsidian, glassy. It's a flake. It's an irregular shaped flake. And here's an antler. 鹿の角ですね。角だね。And also, this is also an antler, deer antler. And this is a pointed end here. And this is the lower part of the antler. And it could be used as a hammer. Like when you're breaking larger stone in a hard way, you can use it as a hammer. And of course, in indirect percussion, you can use it like this, I'll show you the pressure flaking. This flake bears very sharp edge. This end is very sharp, and this other end is very sharp too. So all the way, very sharp. You don't want to touch it. Very, very dangerous. And I'll work on this lower end. So, heal the sharp edge first. Pressing down onto the edge. And you have, you see, minute flaking, a series of minute flaking right here. And this is not the real flaking. This is a kind of platform that I can press. If you have a feather edge, when you press it hard, it just breaks. But when you have a platform, tiny platform like this, you can press like this. You see, tiny flake. It's bigger than the first tiny chips. It's the flakes. You press it like this. Now you have flaked blade right here. Can you see the smaller fracture? And this is pressure flaking. And this is exactly the technology that they use for making smaller, finer things like arrowheads. These things, huh? You can't make this by hitting with a hammer. But whenever you want to make something finer, something in a delicate design, you always have to use this pressure flaking. And you notice that how much of waste it should produce, right? So if you have like 1 kilogram of original obsidian block, maybe the stone tool would be like 50 to 60% of it. And the other part will be wasted like this. It's not really effective way of using the stone, but so that's the reason why they invented this blade technique and microblade technique. I'll show you the diagram again. By the way, it's very dangerous. These tiny chips are very sharp, and you get all bloody on your fingers. Wait, let me go back to this chronology. All right, so we saw that the earlier part, we have a bigger, thicker, and irregular shape type of tools, but as time passes, it becomes very smaller, sharper, and unified shape. Isn't it? The reason why is the invention of the blade technique. Through the blade technique, you get the secondary material blades in uniform shape and thickness. So then you make them into various type of tools like knives and points and things. So naturally, as a result, you get the same size, same shape tools, unified tools, see? And the tool making technology, like one side working for knife shaped tools, it was established somewhere around here. So that's why they have the same kind of shape. You see, that's a chronology, that's a development of technology in stone tool making. And the final phase is this one, microblades. And it's not only the effective, efficient way of using the precious material, but also there's another merit of microblade. That is, you can make any kind of tools of any size, any shape. It's accumulation of, it's a row of those tiny pieces, so you can extend it as long as you want. You want to if you want to make big points, you can do it with those. You can make small ones. You can make bent ones. You can make fat ones. You can choose the shape as you desire, you know. So you get the freedom of shape, tool shape, and as well as efficient way of consuming the material. So it's the most advanced way of technology of stone tool making, isn't it? This one's a huge arrow, isn't it? I mean, spear, isn't it? Okay. And you can't make all those tools, Paleolithic tools, from any kind of stones. You have to choose the good quality stone. And in case of Japan, we have obsidian. There are sorry about that. You see it better now. You have a source of obsidian in Hokkaido. It's a big source right here in Shirataki. It's a very, very good quality obsidian. It's pitch black. Sometimes there's a red line inside, red stripes inside of the iron. It's beautiful and good quality stone. And you don't have the obsidian in the northern part, only in some small sources. And you have a big one, another big one in Nagano Prefecture, Wada Toge. And this source also bears good quality obsidian of transparent type. It's not black. It's very, very clear type. And also used in Kanto region and Shinshu, central Japan region. And into Western Japan, this area, they don't have obsidian. Instead, they would have what you call sanukite. Sanukite is a type of andesite or basalt. It's a volcanic rock of the very fine grain and very hard, and gives very sharp edge when you break it. And the famous source is Nijozan, right on the border between Osaka and Nara prefectures. And into Kyushu, they also have some obsidian sources, not as good quality as the Central or Hokkaido one, but they also have obsidian, so they use it a lot. So depends on the locality, the stone quality differs, but they always try to find, I mean, I forgot to explain about Tohoku region, northern part. They don't have obsidian, they don't have sanukite, but they have shale, S-H-A-L-L, shale, I mean, S-H-A-L-E, shale. And shale is also a very hard kind of stone and very glassy and gives a sharp edge. So they always try to find the best quality stone material for their tools. Of course, they were living on it. So, and since they were wanderers, they traveled all around. So whenever they went close to the source, they did not forget to acquire some nodules, materials. Right. Talking about stone tool technology, this is all the material, stone material or stone flakes or tools or whatever that ever found from one site, one concentration of these artifacts. And this is a core. You can see the parallel lines of the blade. But this is not the blade, this is a core, blade core. Yeah? And you see all the pieces fitted together because they were at once, I mean, once they were one piece, just one block, and they were flaked off one by one. So if you have all the material, then you can put them back to the original shape, right? So that's a fitting. And this is a very important work in archaeology. Whenever you find flakes or material of the same stone, you have to do this. It's a three-dimensional puzzle, isn't it? It's very, very difficult, but it's very interesting. And by doing this, you can tell the order of flaking, which order they flaked the piece first and which one the last. And you see like these staircases like flakes. They have to renew the platform all the time because as you take the blades, then you will break the edge of the platform every time, and you will not be able to take the blade anymore if you have a broken edge. This edge is very important. So every time you have to renew the platform, you see. And this is a final platform. They started out from here. And something like that. And of course, you always have a missing piece. You don't have this one and this one, right? Somebody brought it to someplace else. But anyway, so this is very important work to fit the material into the original shape, just to tell the technology of the people in Paleolithic time. And by doing this, this is a result of it. It's one site in northern Japan. And it's an early stage of Paleolithic period because it's a big site of the big group. And these cluster of red dots are the concentration of flakes and chips. And obviously they were making stone tools right here, you see? And there are many, many clusters. We call them units or blocks. So many people were working at a time or spending days. Maybe less people would just change the location and made the stone tools in certain periods of time. And what I want you to see is a line connected between those clusters. This is a fitting line, we call. When one piece fits with this one, you connect it with a line. And this is a result. You see, all fitted together into one piece, like this one, you know. And by doing this, you will see the dynamic activity of the people in the stone tool producing practice. For example, what you can tell from here is this cluster has common pieces with this cluster. You see this line, or this cluster has these common ones with this cluster, or that one, or this one. Yeah. So that means probably one of the piece that this guy produced was brought into this cluster and worked with by other people, maybe the same people too, but was moved to this, or this one was moved to here and worked. See, this kind of dynamic, this activity can be seen from this fitting relations, all right? And this is more stylized type of the same site, same relationship. So the numbered circles are all the clusters, and you see all the relationship between those clusters. Like this one, 81, has very close relationship with all the clusters around. So maybe this guy could share the material with these other people. You see, that could happen, of course. So this is one type of stone tool study. Also, okay, so much for stone tool. I'm kind of off from this handouts, but you can read it later. And okay, wait. Fitting, reconstruction. Okay, all right. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the AT. AT is the Aira Tanza volcanic ash. Did I tell you about this huge eruption of Aira? Yeah, I did last week. And that was a border between two kinds of stone tool styles. The earlier, before the eruption, in general, but the entire Japan, the people were making same sort of, sort of irregular but larger type of tools. But from the eruption on, their subsistence system changed. They gave up hunting huge animals and shifted to the smaller, middle-sized animal. So they didn't have to move around too much. That's what I explained last week. And so they would not have much chance to share the information with the groups around. Less chances of trading and meeting each other and sharing technology compared to the earlier half, isn't it? So as a result, they would start to make their local, original type of tools in various areas of Japan. So the local types started to appear. from this volcanic event on. Okay, so much for tools, but how about pebbles? Also, pebbles are stones, and they were used in pebble shape. And did I show you this one, pebble cluster? It's a frying pan. It's a barbecue place. They collected the riverbed pebbles. 円礫って言いますね。丸い、摩耗した石ですね。pebbles. And build fire over it and heat it. Then quench the fire and grill the meat over it. Okay, so that's what they invented. And I think I explained it about it, didn't I? The reason why. Well, anyway, probably the earlier people must have grilled the meat over fire directly. Yeah? But the direct fire would give a charred surface. Surface will be all black in a minute. And the inside of the meat is not cooked still because the fire heat does not penetrate through the material. While these stones, when they were heated, radiates this far infrared ray,遠赤外線ですね. And that's a type of a heat that penetrates through the material. So, and that's what they invented. So by making this heated pebble bed, they could cook the meat well inside, and still they do not get the black surface. You know, it's a very good device. And wait a minute. Oh, we're here. Okay. And normally we don't find this type of this shape. This is obviously a like cooking place. It's a beautiful round, and its cluster is very dense, and not very much of the stones are broken either. But as you heat them many times, it starts to break in pieces, and you would not be able to use it anymore when it's broken into pieces. And that's what we normally find. This is a very rare example. Well, my brain's getting tired, I think. Example, very rare example. You don't find it in this form. Normally you see broken pieces scattered all around, but rather in certain concentration, but not as much as this one. This is a very beautiful example that I excavated several years ago. Okay, it's another feature of the pebbles. It's called arrangement. It's not a concentration, it's not a cluster. It's just a scatter of pebbles. And we can't really tell what they are, but normally what you find is the larger ones, you know, not the fist size, but the larger pebbles are placed. So one theory is that these must be one of the workshop that they could work on stone tool making on this platform or something like that. So, but we're not sure. Oh, I forgot to tell you about this heated cluster, pebble cluster. In some cases, it may not be the cooking place, because when the stones were broken in pieces and they would pick them out, you know, tiny, choppy stones would not be good for cooking. So they pull them out and throw it away. So there's another cluster that must be a dump place, waste place, 捨て場ですね. And you may find that too, but they are all consist of smaller pieces and very scattered sparsely. And also another type is not really being told by archaeologists, but I personally firmly believe that some of these were also used for heating over your tent. You know, it's a glacial period, very cold, especially cold at night, and you have to sleep in tent. Tent is not really warm place to be in. It will prevent the wind and frost and things, but should be really cold. So you can bring those part of those heated pebbles, heated stones into the tent, and that will radiate the heat for long, long hours. Because another characteristics of the stones is to keep the heat. You keep the heat, the stone keep the heat for a certain time than many other material. And it's like a Hokkaido, ne? You use a Hokkaido even today, right? In winter time, you place it into your clothes, close to your stomach or something, and keep you warm. But it's been used for many, many years. It has a long history of heating device. Like in Buddhist temple, they use something like onjaku. Onjaku means warm stone, warm stones. Yeah? It's like a soap shape, a soap size stone that's been heated in hot water, boiling water. And they wrap it, dry it, wrap it in cloth and put it into his clothes and close to your stomach and go out. You know, it's a, excuse me, one of the heating devices for many years. All right. So many characteristics of the stones they could find and invent various methods of cooking or heating or whatever in their lives. All right, what's next? Oh yeah. Okay, other material than stones. We don't find those organic stuffs in Japan, but in other countries, other part of the world, they may have shown some examples like this. This is a wooden spear from Germany. It's a long one. This is a 50 centimeter. It's like over 2 meters long, but both end is pointed. It's obviously worked and pointed, so they must be the spears. You don't have to put any stone tools on one end. If the spear is, the wood stick is pointed like this, it could be functional in the hunting also. And if you're strong enough and if you're fast enough to throw these spears, you know, it can be a good arm too. And something else. Oh, I have to show this one. Spear thrower. There are some examples in the continent, I mean, Eurasian continent, made of bones and tusk and things. But this is a kind of stick that aids to throw the spear. And we haven't found this in Japan yet, as we don't find any organic material. But the system is very simple. The one end of the stick is sticking out. In this part, you place the end of the spear and you grab those two together and throw it. But you're not releasing the thrower stick like this one. You started out from this grabbing the spear shaft and spear haft and thrower together and started to swing and push the back of the spear with the end of this stick like this. You see? So what it makes is that you extend your arm length by holding this stick. It's a long arm. And by throwing a spear with a long arm, you would give the spear more power. And if you get used to it, you get more accuracy. So this is one of the invention in the spear throwing technology. think it's called Atlati or something like that. It's a strange name, but they're still using it. Like Australian Aborigines, natives, they're hunters. They hunt like kangaroos and stuff, but they still use this kind of device. So it must be effective. And I'll show you. Yes, a minute. Okay. This is a reproduction. It's made of wood, but of the spear thrower. So on one end, it has projection like this. And you grab it on the other end. You have a sling so that it wouldn't go. And this is a spear. Actually, this is a flute, bamboo flute, but suppose this is the end of the spear. You put the end to this projection and hold it like this, okay? And you start to swing, start to throw and release the shaft and press the butt of the spear with the stick like this. Can you tell? Got this? I want to, well, I hope we will have a chance to show it in the field. Actually, I'll let you throw these like this. Obviously, you can add more power to the shaft of the spear, right? And if you get used to it, you can get the accuracy too. All right. And let's see. The material. Wait. Can you see it now? Yeah, okay. So this is a spear thrower. I hope we'll find some evidences, examples in Japan too. Probably they were using that too. Because they must have had some kind of connection between continent and Japan, Japanese archipelago, because they share the stone material. They're finding some obsidians from Hokkaido in Siberia, some sites of Siberia. They have this obsidian came from Hokkaido. So somebody must have gone there and somebody must have come in too. So there must be some trace of information too. And this is also the continent examples with the bone needles. Beautiful, huh? The same needles that we use as we use. It's medo desu ne, tiny holes at the end, on one end, and very sharp. And you have a perforator, kiri ga atte ne, and you make a hole and sew. And what about this string? What do you think these are made of? Strings. In later time, like Jomon period, they make a lot of strings and cords with plant fibers. Plant fibers. But they were not very much of plant fibers acquired, available in glacial time, Paleolithic period. So you have to find something else instead. What do you think? Of course, you can make a leather cords, leather string, but it's not really fine. You see this point, I mean, tiny holes. Leather cord would not fit in these tiny holes. Something else. What do you think? Any idea? Nobody? Fine, long, strong material. One possibility is the tendon. Is it tendon? Is that the right word? 腱ですね。アキレス腱の腱。Organs that connects the bone and muscle. You see, like when you eat chicken meat, when you buy chicken meat, it has this white string-like things in, right? You have to take that off, right? And for the bigger animals, you can acquire a longer and stronger but fine line fiber of this tendon. Is it tendon? I forgot. Sorry. But anyway, and also you could be able to use your hair too, or hair of animal. Like if you find, well, we didn't have horse, but in Europe they had horse in this time, and the horse hair or human hair, of course. If you twine them together, it will be a very strong cord. So there are various possibilities for strings, but they obviously were sewing material like this. Okay. Also, and bones and antlers. Antlers are especially good for maritime use. And these are harpoons in the Siberian area. And probably they were river fishing. ですね。チョウザメでも取ってたんですかね。This bone and antler. Tackles ですね。Fishing tackles. Harpoons have this, how do you call that in English? But they're sticking out so that you won't release the fish. You catch the fish surely. And these things are very slender ones. You may pierce the fish, but as you pull out, you will just pull out the harpoon, you know. But they must have had some devices like hafting them in angle or something like that. So you don't haft it straight back, but you haft it like angle to it. So the one end works like, you know, these thorns. Anyway, we don't find that in Japan. Too bad. Needles, another needles. And going to, wait a minute. Did I explain about other things? Wood, bone, antler, teeth, fang, whatever you can get from the animal. And wood, of course, woodworking was also popular, I'm sure. And could be made into spear, digging stick, haft of various things like spears, string, plant strings are less possibility, I guess. Container, like a basket, you know, that's possible. And leather, tent, cloth, shoes, container. They must have worn shoes. It's really, really cold in the time, Ice Age. And leather bags, container, of course. Bones, spear, haft, carving, ornaments. Ornaments, yeah, they were making ornaments that I'm going to talk about now. And liquid vessel, leather canteen, maybe, bark vessel, wood, carved wood vessel, maybe, but not very much of those. So they could not carry around the water very much. I'm pretty sure. Well, they could use a leather canteen. That's the least possibility. Anyway, into spiritual culture, that's very hard one, you know. It's very hard to go into the spiritual culture of the Paleolithic people. There are some figurines like the Venus that I showed you, and but it's in Europe or other part of the world. Never found in Japan except this one. This is a stone figurine. They say figurine. It's like a kokeshi head. You see something like eyes and probably nose and mouth. We don't really know. It's not clear in Kyushu area, but this is the only one we found in Japan. So, and various ornaments exist in eastern part of the Eurasian continent, especially in Siberia. Like this one. This is a pendant made of mammoth bones, carved out of mammoth bones. It's a beautiful necklace. And all the beads, perforated beads, are also mammoth bones and tusks. And in China or various other parts would show beads, always perforated beads or pendants. But in Japan, these are the only examples ever found in Hokkaido, southern part of Hokkaido. Yeah, these made of beautiful stone, green stone. これはなんて言うんだっけな。I forgot the English term of it. So, 日本語も忘れたな。観覧石。観覧石ってなんて言うんですか、英語で。I'm sorry, I forgot. But it's kind of popular green stone. You still see today. Greenstone would be the representative of greenstone would be this one, and it's perforated beautifully. You see the hole is perfectly round. That indicates that they were using the owl perforator, not the hand perforator, but probably something like kiri ですね。kiri ってわかる perforator this way. That would give a perfect round hole into the stone. Okay, and this is the same kind of stone in black type. It also has a hole. It's obviously a human-made hole and probably a pendant. And these were found from one pit, large pit. So probably it's being thought that this pit was a burial. Ohaka ではないかと。Wait a minute. Okay, this is the only example of ornaments, body ornaments in Paleolithic time in Japan. We should find more, but was not very popular, maybe. Oh, wait a minute. Another examples. Oh, like this is a fang of probably dog or wolf fang. And in other cases, they would use shark teeth. Not in here, but shark teeth or wolf fang. Kiba ですね. And the reason why they decorate themselves with those pendants and beads and stuffs, we don't know. There are many theories about those. Nobody knows the truth. But for the fangs and teeth, shark teeth, we could think about acquiring the power of the strong animal. You know, the wolves and sharks are life-threatening, dangerous animal to the human beings. And the most strongest part of the wolf is a fang. Most strongest part of the shark is the teeth. So by bearing those to your body, you could wish to acquire the power of those dangerous animals. That's also a possibility. So there could be various reasons to bear those ornaments, but we have to still decipher. Okay. We're talking about burial. We don't find too much burial. We don't find too much pits either. I don't know why, but it's very difficult to find the pits in the Paleolithic time. There are some cases, but those pits were not clarified in terms of function. And since there were wanderers, they were campers, and they were walking around, they would not be able to make up certain places like a burial ground, graveyard of their own group or something like that. They could, but if they did not leave any sign, they would not be able to come back again. And we don't have any evidence of those graveyard signs of that period. So probably they did not make those a certain burial area. So whenever their member died, they just buried them at their camp, close to their camp, and they moved out later on. There are some examples in like Iraq, the desert area, Iraq. There's a cave called Shanidal, and there were several burial pits, and skeletal remains were found from those pits. And one of the pits, adult male was in the pit. And along with various stone tools and stuffs, they found a bunch of pollen, flower pollen from the fill of the pit. 花粉ですね。of the chrysanthemums type, and なんていうかな、アザミって英語でなんていうんだろうな。The very popular flowers. A bunch of those pollen was found. So they estimate that probably they put flowers along with the body, dead body, when they buried him. There are other theories, but that's one example. And this is not the Homo sapiens. This is a case of Neanderthal, one step behind. So even in that stage, they had this intellectual activities or related to your emotion or heart or whatever, or probably religion too. I don't know. But and also another pit, another burial from the same cave. There was a elder male, old man buried, and his legs were numb. His legs were not in use anymore, and he lost one arm. So he was obviously handicapped, but he lived until he died there, and he was buried correctly. So that means that this group was taking care of him, even though he could not walk. You know, somebody was carrying him around until he died. You see, so this also reflects their spiritual status, isn't it? Anyway, we don't find those burials much in Japan. Too bad. Okay, and group relation. I talked about the group relation, right? Stress and cooperation. Of course, whenever you meet with other group, you would have some kind of stress. You have a strained atmosphere, but by the end, you have more merit by cooperation. Cooperating with other people would give you more results, good results. I'm sure they knew that. So we don't find very much of the fighting and very much evidence of the fighting or warfare or killing or stuff like that. We don't know about the detail. And like I said, it's a loose relationship between groups. It's not really planned out by chance, coincidence. They could meet each other by possibilities. Problem of matrimony, getting married with other group. That's important too. And I'm sure they knew about that, all about that. Language, it's difficult to reconstruct the language situation. But the complicated language would be pointed out by the shape of the mouth cavity. Behind the mouth, you have a room. But if you don't have big room in a narrow space, you cannot use your tongue freely. You cannot change the shape of tongue, position of your tongue freely. You have to have a certain big space to produce various sounds by tongue, moving tongue. All the pronunciation we use, various kinds of pronunciation we use is by controlling the tongue, right? So by studying the skull and observing the cavity area or shape of the roof of the mouth cavity, you would be able to some extent, you would be able to tell the development stage of their language. Okay. But in those Paleolithic time lives of hunting and gathering and working in various material and putting up tent, heating up, the cooking food and various works, you have to have a certain kind of communication, and which is not very simple. So I'm pretty sure they had, in case of Japan, in the Paleolithic time, they must have had this certain language established already. Probably that's related to Jomon language, and probably Jomon language is related to present Japanese too. This is one theory. Okay, let's talk about this distribution. This is a site I have excavated many years ago in Tokyo, and this is a Paleolithic sites, and these dots representing the distribution of the stone tools found. And this is one cluster, and this is another cluster right here, small one. And obviously somebody was making stone tool right here, right? And what I want you to see is, let's see. Which one? Oh, yeah. This shape is like a crescent, Mikazuki no crescent shape. What's the meaning of this shape? It's not just round cluster of flake and chips or broken tools. You have a space here, right here, sort of. And we think that probably this is the position of the guy who were making these stone tools. So obviously, well, no chips and flakes would fall under himself, not very much of it. Or sometimes the chips would hit him and bounce back. So you have this empty space right here. And leftward is the south in direction. So probably he was facing south for a bit of light to work with the stones. And also this crescent shape, you have more concentration on this side than this side, right? More material side than this side. If he was facing south toward this way, then this was his right side and this was his left side. And what can you tell from this difference of density and the number of material? You're a detective. Guess.
The person was left-handed or right-handed?
Oh yeah. Great. Let me show you a simple thing. You're working with a stone, with a tool. You're hitting or pressing or whatever. And if you're right-handed like this, and the chips and flakes would fly around, but if you're right-handed, the chips would go to the right area, not to the left area. You don't make this one with the right hand, this kind of action. You make it. Always you use this kind of action to produce more stuffs in the right hand side. If you're left-handed, the other way around, right? So probably it's only a possibility, but probably you can what you can guess is he was right-handed. It's only a possibility, but that's possible. Also, there's another cluster, small cluster, and includes a half-finished tool. This is I think this guy wanted to make a point, long point. This is the end of the point. Very well worked, finely worked. He has a good technique, but to the pity, this material, this is obsidian, but this material he was using was in poor quality, so bad quality obsidian, and kind of easy to break. And it's obvious that while he was making it, this face was broken. The other end was broken by this line. And it's obvious that he started to work with the leftover, the left material. So you can see this worked face. And also, next time, for the second time, he had this breakage right here. So he gave up making it. And by this step, you can tell his process of breakage and how he gave up, when he gave up. Oh, the other way around. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. This is the first breakage. This is the first breakage. He made it all the way up, I think. But he broke it right here. So he dumped it, this one, and started to make the butt, another round butt right here. So that's why it's reduced right here. And he was working on it. And he broke this one right here. So he gave up. It wasn't too long enough. It wasn't long enough to make another point, maybe. So he left those two pieces at his workshop. And also, he was probably making another one. This is a knife-shaped tool of the same stone quality, poor quality. But those two are broken in pieces, I mean, in two pieces. And one was found from here, the other was found from here. And what's the difference with those broken ones from here, broken ones from here apart? And it's obvious that he was making one side, he was working on one side because it's a knife-shaped tool. This is a sharp edge and work on one side. But as he came down here, it was broken right there. And from this piece, he could not make the knife anymore. It was too small. So he, probably the same guy, I think. But he didn't leave those two pieces right here like these. That means, why these are far apart?
Was it the tool? Was he making the others with this one?
What did you say? Jewel?
Was this last one the tool he was using to make the other stuff?
We don't know if it was the last one or not.
Mm.
That's hard to tell. Possible. Of course, we don't know the fact. We don't know the truth, but you can guess his activity from this distribution. Well, I just simply thought that he made this not in success. So he resigned right there and he started making this one, and he also broke this one, and he got mad and threw these away. He got mad, I think. Well, it's a guess, of course. Nobody knows the truth. But this is an obvious fact that these two pieces were all together at one time, but they were separated and found apart. There has to be a reason to it. Somebody brought one piece to remote place, and the other guy brought this one to this place. No, I thought this guy was so mad and threw these pieces apart in different direction. Okay, anyway, that's a fun guess. And pebble cluster. Oh, time is up, I think. Okay, I can continue that from next week. I was going to go into German period, but couldn't make it. I'll talk about this difference of distribution of the pebble cluster and also another type of stone tool cluster. Yeah. Okay. Any questions so far?
Yes, I have. About the Shaktis, you said
Yeah.
people use the Shaktis for some accessories.
Hmm.
But is it means that they have a technology to go to sea and hunt sharks, or just collecting sheep?
I don't think so, because in Paleolithic time, some people claim that they had boats or canoes, dug out canoes, but I don't think so. Until very end of the Paleolithic or Jomon time, they never used ocean craft. That's my theory. So they and also they didn't have a good weapons good enough to hunt shark. So probably what they got is drifted, dead shark drifted over the current and reached to the coastal area. 寄り付きじゃねえや。死んでね、流れ着いた。So sometimes, like even in Jomon time, they in a shell mound they found bones of the whale, but I don't think they hunted for whale in Jomon time. So they are also drifted whale. So they never lost the chance. Whenever they find the drifted shark, they could pick up the teeth and perforate. They always perforate the shark teeth to sling it, to make it to a pendant or necklace. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any question? I'm sorry, I can't be too clear on Paleolithic time. Well, archaeology is like that, but even the Paleolithic time is so old, so many years ago. So we have less evidences to prove something. But we're hoping to get more evidences in later time. Okay?
Yeah.
No other question? Okay, so next time, next week, I'll finish up this distribution story and go into Jomon period. ですね。Okay. では、さようなら。
ありがとうございました。
はい。
ありがとうございました。
はい。
Thank you.
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 Thank you.